Hello and welcome to Campus Stories. I'm your host, Joe Garris. With me today, I have Dr. Anthony Moretti, head of the new department of Citadel Department on Robert Morris. So Anthony, before we get into everything with the Citadel, why don't you tell me a little bit more about your background prior to becoming a teacher?
I spent, I was bit by the journalism bug when I was a kid, which I guess is true probably of a lot of people, right? I can remember I was 8 or 9. I grew up in Southern California, and there was supposed to be a tornado blowing through. You know, Southern California, it's earthquakes, not tornadoes, you know? And we went to my cousin's house, and they, put us in this closet because the storm was supposed to blow through and all this thing. And I got this weird idea that I was going to start broadcasting from, like, the closet or something. And, it's my cousin and I are sitting there in the pitch black, and I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about. I probably still do that today, come to think of it. No, don't you agree with me? And so I was sort of bit by that broadcast bug pretty early. So probably by the time I was 15, 16, I knew I wanted to get into the journalism world in some capacity. I loved sports as a kid as well. I still do now. And so when the opportunity to get into a sports broadcasting career came along, for me it was just too much to pass up. It seemed like one of those dream come true sort of things. As I said, I grew up in Southern California. I started working there when I was still in college. I can remember one of the very first interviews I did was with a baseball player named Andre Dawson, who the year before had won the National League MVP award. He played for the Cubs. He had played most of his career with the Montreal Expos, who are now in Washington. And here's this 20-year-old kid trying to do this interview with Andre Dawson, trying to sound like I'm intelligent and smart and grown up. My heart's going about 1,000 miles an hour. I'm like, I'm interviewing the National League most valuable player here. But he was as nice a gentleman as you could ever meet, just an absolutely super guy. And so I stayed in the business for about a dozen years or so, moved into news at some point as well. But I got bit by a second thing called the teaching bug when I was getting my master's. And at some point I knew I wanted more stability and more sort of control over the times I worked and when I was working and all of that. And once I got married in 1997 and my wife and I had our first child in 1999, then for us it was, you know what, I think now's the time to make the move into higher ed.
So did you start off at Robert Morris, or did you start teaching at other colleges?
Started at other places. I taught for 2 years at Texas Tech University, which is in Lubbock, Texas. And one of the questions that people often ask is, where the heck is Lubbock, Texas? Well, if you can imagine a line with Albuquerque here to the west and Dallas here to the east, those are about 600 miles apart. Lubbock is darn near smack dab in the middle. It's in West Texas. It's a wonderful place to raise a family. And in fact, our second child was born when we were down there. But the problem was that we were getting a little too far away from home. Although I was raised in Southern California, most of my family is still in New York, where I was born. And it just got a little too hard to get back there for either holidays or family events or whatever. And subsequently, my mom, who was in New York, and my wife's grandmother, unfortunately my wife's grandmother is still with us, they both got sick at about the same time. And so we made the decision that, if we could come back a little closer this direction, we would. And by happy accident, my phone rang one day, my work phone rang when I was in Texas, and it was a colleague who taught at Point Park University in downtown. And he said, hey, we've got a broadcast journalism faculty position. Would you be interested in it? And as my wife loves to tell the story, I got home and I mentioned, hey, Point Park, Pittsburgh, this, that, and the other thing. One of our boys had the flu at the time. And as she tells it, about 3 days later, she looked at me and went, we're moving to Pittsburgh? So, finally, her mind finally caught up to the conversation from a few days before. And I was there for 7 years and then had the opportunity to come over here, and this is my 3rd year here. And it's been an absolute blast.
So your first teaching job was at Texas Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Then you did broadcast at Point Park. What have been like the different changes in subjects?
They were a little different only because Point Park's program was a little broader in terms of the courses that they offered than they did at Texas Tech. When I was down there at Texas Tech, they were revamping the entire journalism curriculum. And what they did at that point was to essentially split off what was print journalism and broadcast journalism into basically standalone sort of entities. And so some of the courses that were not yet in place, I thought I was probably going to have an opportunity to begin to put in place. By the time I got to Point Park, however, that program had already been established. It had been around for, oh gosh, I want to say 15, 20 years by that point. And there was a clear distinction of print-based courses and broadcast-based courses as well. So there wasn't as much course development involved for me at Point Park as there would have been had I stayed at Texas Tech. And you know, Robert Morris is sort of the hybrid a little bit, because we have journalism here and TV production and a lot of the broadcast courses over here in media arts. And so what has been really exciting for me is to watch these otherwise distinct departments, and more importantly, the students in both, start blending together. You know, 3 years ago when we had our first Society for Collegiate Journalists induction, there were, oh gosh, maybe 15, 16 students that night. Almost all of them were either journalism or comm majors. Following year, meaning last year, we had 8 or 10 that we brought in, and there were about 5 or 6 journalism and 2 or 3 media arts students. And this year it's almost a perfect blend, 50-50. And Carrie Monod, who is our student media advisor here, she and I have often talked about the real satisfaction that we're getting in seeing students not discuss or not talk about themselves as just this or just that they see the blending, which we call convergence, coming together in the Century newsroom. But more importantly, from an academic standpoint, we see them taking courses in both departments.
Okay, and we'll come back with more after this break. We'll be back after this break with Dr. Anthony Moretti.
These boys are my heroes. They come every week to spend time with my children.
At Robert Morris University, every student is expected to reach out to others.
They can teach them something no one else can.
Wisconsin.
They're role models to the children, and homework comes way before sports. Their grades have improved, and their lives are just a bit richer.
Okay.
What they do for my kids is truly wonderful.
Change someone's life. It changes yours forever. Robert Morris University.
I call them my lifeline.
People don't realize how quickly you can end up on the street. One thing happens in your life, medical bills you can't pay, you lose your job, and that's it.
At Robert Morris University, every student is expected to reach out to others.
We went to DC to work with the homeless. They sell a newspaper called Street Sense. Thought I'd help.
But if you want to give more, you can.
This person came up to me and said, "Get a job." And for 2 hours, I felt what it was like to be homeless.
Good morning. $1 help.
Some of the other students said, "How can we change this?" And I said, "Sometimes you can't change the world, but you may be able to change one person's world." My dream? Open a psych clinic for people on the street.
Change someone's life. It changes yours forever. Robert Morris University.
We're back here with Dr. Anthony Moretti. So, Dr. Anthony, you have been here for 3 years now. How has your experience with Robert Morris been with the changes in converged media over the last few years?
You know, what's fun for me to see, and we just started to mention this a little bit before the break started, is, you know, college students sometimes begin their college life and they are absolutely sure of what they want to do, and they almost have these like blinders on, you know, that they know exactly what they want. And you know, one of the challenges that we face as faculty is to make sure that students understand that the capital J journalism world is undergoing a phenomenal change. And one of those changes is that what had been standalone print and standalone broadcasting are really not standalone entities anymore. One of the favorite stories I like to tell is about, gosh, 5 or 6 years ago now. I was attending a lecture that Jeff Zucker, who at the time was the head of NBC Universal, was delivering. And he said, I always begin the speech with this line. He said, "I'm always asked, what does the future of television look like? And he said, I know the answer. I don't have a clue. And neither does anyone else. And so what that means for us as educators is that, we have to always make sure that we're in as much direct contact with the industry as we possibly can. Because those are the people who see those changes on a daily basis and can tell us, this is a course that's working pretty well. This is a course maybe you should reconsider. We started in COM, for example, an advisory board a couple of years ago, and had our second meeting with them in around the middle of September. And one of the questions we asked them was, please take a look at our curriculum and tell us what needs to change. And that's, to me, that's always the hallmark of a good academic program. If we are willing as educators to stand in front of our students and say, we think this is the best education we can give you right now, but we're going to make sure by doing A, B, and C, or at least trying A, B, and C, then I think we can look at those students in the eye and say we've done the best service we can for them.
And we also spoke earlier about your previous experience in the broadcast field. How does that translate into teaching in a classroom setting?
What I try to do is not be a storyteller, meaning this happened to me or this happened to me or something like that. But what I try to do is use those as examples of things to consider. And there are those moments you can prepare for and those moments that you can't prepare for. And I think my favorite story was probably the worst story that I ever had to cover. And I'll explain what I mean here in a second. I was 22 or 23 years old. And Hank Gathers was a basketball player in Southern California who started at the University of Southern California, where I was a student. He and his best friend, Bo Kimball, and I were freshmen together. I didn't know them. They transferred to another university a year later. And the year after I graduated, Hank Gathers and Bo Kimball were seniors because they were now graduating in 5 years instead of 4. And Hank Gathers dropped dead in a basketball court one night. He had a heart arrhythmia or something. I forget all the details now. And so the story I like to tell these students is, all right, I want you to imagine you're 20, 21 years old now. I want you to imagine if you had to cover a story tomorrow morning in which someone your age, full of health, as healthy as a horse, and Hank Gathers was just a giant of a man, but as kind as he was large. And I tell them, what do you do in that situation? Well, the reality is there's not much you can prepare for in that role. It was the worst story I ever covered because for me, it was the first time in my life that I understood mortality. And I saw this young man who otherwise had this fantastic basketball career ahead of him, suddenly taken from him. And worse, his life was taken from him in the process. And I still get goosebumps now, 20 some odd years later, whatever it's been. It's one of those stories. So in other words, what I like to do is be as much of a storyteller from the standpoint of make it a teaching moment or a learning moment instead of just standing up there and telling a story about something that sounds funny or humorous. I always try to have a point to it.
And you've also, going back to you've been here for 3 years. In your time at RMU, how have you enjoyed the campus? How have you found RMU?
What I love is I love a college campus and all of the environment and all of the energy and enthusiasm that comes with that. One of the things I missed when we went from Texas Tech to Point Park is that Point Park is a downtown urban campus. And so there aren't those gathering places where students go. And there isn't, a really competitive set of athletic teams. There isn't the college green and those sorts of things. Those things I really like. And architecturally, I think it's just a fascinating campus. Each of the schools, once the School of Nursing building goes up right across the street from the Wheatley Center, every school on campus will have its own building. We all have our own identities. To me, and I listen to people who have been here 10, 12, 15 years, and they tell me the transformation of just the campus grounds over the last 15 years or so has been incredible. And even for me, seeing the Wheatley Center go up and now see the Nursing Center go up the hill there is a really neat thing for me to see because that's a sign of a university that's growing.
Okay. Well, thank you for that answer, Dr. Moretti. We'll be right back after this break with more with Dr. Moretti and about Citadel.
Nicaragua is a completely different world. We were there to bring nursing care to some desperate people.
At Robert Morris University, every student is expected to reach out to others.
The very first person that I met was David. Kept saying, "You have to come to my house and watch me play my trumpet." You could tell from the look on his face that it was just his most prized possession. I get back home. A few weeks later, I got a message that a gang had broken into his house at night and they stole it, which was his life. So next trip back, we gave him a new one. The look on his face was just complete disbelief. He just absolutely couldn't believe it. And to be able to do something like that is one of the best moments of my life. He said he'd never forget us.
Change someone's life. It changes yours forever. Robert Morris University.
These boys are my heroes. They come every week to spend time with my children.
At Robert Morris University, every student is expected to reach out to others.
They can teach them something no one else can.
Say Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
They're role models to the children, and homework comes way before sports. Their grades have improved, and their lives are just a bit richer.
Okay.
What they do for my kids is truly wonderful.
Change someone's life. It changes yours forever. Robert Morris University.
I call them my lifeline.
We're back with Campus Stories. Joining me now is Dr. Anthony Moretti, the director of the new department known as Citadel. Thank you for joining us, Anthony.
Thanks for having me here.
So, Anthony, can you tell us a little bit about Citadel?
Citadel's a new initiative for the university. It's called the Center for Innovative Teaching and Directed Engaged Learning. And if you can imagine a triangle as sort of the best way to visualize this, the director spot sits at the top, and then we're going to have two faculty coordinators that are going to be in charge of the innovative teaching side, which we're calling Teaching, Learning, and Technology, and then one on the engaged learning side as well. The TLT side will be probably more faculty focused, and the engaged learning side will be more student focused. But what is so fun for me in this new role is that because the Citadel's new to the university, as I said, we're really at the stage where we're trying out a lot of things. We're planning to try out a lot of ideas or initiatives or programs, and see what works, see what we like, see what we think we can improve upon, see what we want to make a regular feature of the Citadel. So for me, this semester is going to be, or continue to be, very much an information gathering kind of process. Learning from what other universities around the country do with programs like ours, and hopefully at the end of the semester, and then rolling out definitely into the spring, a lot of initiatives and ideas that we really like and that we want to hopefully see become long-term opportunities for both faculty and students here on the campus.
What were some of the ideas or history behind the formation of Citadel?
A lot of universities have what are called something like centers of teaching and learning, or titles such as that. And so this is our opportunity to do something like it. There was an initiative like this here about 12 or so years ago that didn't really get off the ground all that well. And so it took that much time, unfortunately, to bring it back. But one thing that I know is the people who were here back then have been really generous in terms of ideas, or saying, hey, look, this is what we tried back then that didn't work. Let's not do that again. One of the messages that came through very clearly is that our faculty really want to be involved in this, that they don't want to be told what to do, that they want to be helping us craft various programs and then delivering a bunch of programs. So what's fun for me is, although this is my third year at RMU, there are still a lot of faculty whom I either know very little or hadn't met before. And so the chance to see almost the entire faculty across the campus so far this semester has really been a lot of fun.
What are some of the responsibilities that come with your new position?
I'd like to say I've got the full set lined up, but as I said, because things are new, it's sort of an ongoing process. Right now, because we're still waiting to put the coordinator positions in place. We haven't hired those two individuals yet. I'm doing more of the day-to-day planning of events, getting workshops set up, those sorts of things, which I don't think, although I don't know for certain, but I don't think I'll be doing once the coordinators are in place. The hope is that I'll be able to handle some more maybe of the big picture items, some more of the administrative responsibilities that come with the Citadel. But again, one thing that I've said to the faculty across the university that I've talked to already is, I need your input on darn near everything we do. Because when you do something really for the first time, and as I said, it's been 12 years since something like this here was tried, roughly 12 years. So really it's brand new for a whole lot of people. And I think if you have more people aware of what you're doing, more people who feel a part of it or an ownership in it, and more people who contribute to it, I think you improve your chances for success. And that's the message I'm trying to deliver right now is it doesn't matter who's sitting at this spot up here right now. The director's title is not you're going to do what I tell you. The director's title is how can we all work together to see what we want come to fruition.
It's an interesting idea. You talked earlier about the student engagement. How will the Citadel handle student engagement person?
I'm very lucky in that the Office of Engaged Learning has been on campus now about 7 or 8 years. And so that program and that office is really up and running pretty effectively. What we think is going to happen on that side is more refining than anything else. You know, the students like yourself who are freshmen, this is you'll be only the 5th class, I think. Yeah, by the time you graduate, you'll be the 5th or 6th class that has gone through the set from top to bottom, meaning all 4 years. And so we've got 2 years worth of it's worked so far. Of course, as with anything, what you want to do is assess it as you go along. Where are the gaps? Where are things you thought were working that aren't? What are some of the strengths you have? So on the student engagement side, you know, there are the 6 categories, and students need to complete 2 of the 6 in order to graduate. And then we have a 7th, which is a special recognition. And if students do get the 6 plus the special recognition, they get then what's called the Renaissance Award at graduation. We'd love to see more students get the Renaissance Award. We had about 25 last year. We're about on pace, we think, to see roughly the same number this year. But if a student is really motivated from day one with that he or she can very easily complete the 6 plus the special recognition, and then at commencement get a special recognition from the university.
And what should students know about Citadel and how it's going to help them?
I think short term they should probably keep an eye more on that Office of Engaged Learning side, but as I said, because they're familiar with that, it's not like we're starting from scratch there. You know, the message for students I think is going to be, or at this point probably should be, the set is going to remain a feature of this institution. It's something that we as a faculty pride ourselves on, the administration prides itself on, and we hope students feel that same sort of buy-in as well. You know, you know, again, yours will be one of the first group of students who, whether you're looking at the seniors or the freshmen, have been involved in this program. And so there's going to be, I think, some natural momentum built up with that regarding here are some options you should consider, here are some ideas that you may want to think about. You know, one thing that I want to do next semester, once we get all the pieces in place, is that I certainly want to get together with students on an informal basis, you know, grab a favorite soft drink and chat about whatever, and get their impressions on how the set has worked, what are the potential opportunities that are out there that we're not looking at, and in essence, grow that as best we can if it's necessary to grow it, and it may be perfect as it is now, and if it is, that's wonderful. But as long as I think you continue to look at something as an opportunity to build it and make it stronger than it was the day before, then I think you've done yourself a favor for the people involved. So I think that would be the short-term message to the students.
Okay. We will be right back with Anthony with more after this break.
G-Morning, sunshine. Wakey, wakey. Text me. Are your parents home later? We can hang. LUV, love you. JK. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back.
Are you with your friends? That's lame.
We're in a huge fight right now. XO.
What'd you dream about?
Something I
Me?
did. Are you on your way to the
I'm
mall?
lonely.
Nude pics. Send me some. Text me.
I'm starving. What's for breakfast?
Guten Tag!
Johannes, Ross!
I bring you arts-enriched Raisinblums, fortified with increased test scores and creative problem-solving skills.
It's good!
And good for you. Bobby? Susie? Don't worry, that's just the power of the art!
Feed your kids the arts. For 10 simple ways to learn how, visit AmericansForTheArts.org.
You ever think about buying a bigger place?
Just waiting for a visit from the credit fairy.
There is no credit fairy.
How else will I get a better credit score?
Look, you keep your credit card balances low and only open a new card if you really need it.
No fairy?
There's no magic to improving your credit, but there's help, and it's free. Go to creditfairy.org.
Yes, ready.
Oh, come on, Randy. Animal shelter, here I come. And no, I'm not crazy or emotionally damaged. That's a stereotype. I just belong to a total loser. I'm a good dog. So if you want a pet, adopt. And if you see Randy, tell him he dropped his wallet.
Welcome back to Campus Stories. With me still is Dr. Anthony Moretti. So Anthony, what are some of your personal hopes for the Citadel program?
You know, I go back to something we talked about earlier, and that is that we envision it as a center for excellence. And as a result, you know, my message to my faculty colleagues, my message to the administration, and eventually will be my message to the students as well, is you can't have excellence if you don't have everybody who has an idea not able to contribute in that in some form or fashion. Now, I know people can define excellence in various ways. To me, if the Citadel is serving the faculty and the students in the best ways we possibly can, then I think that we will have fulfilled the title of a center of excellence. Whether that would be the same definition at another university in this city or somewhere else, I can't say. But for us, that's the challenge that we put in front of ourselves, is to make this a program that our faculty and our students look at every day and say, I feel that not only I can contribute something to it, but I feel like I'm benefiting from it in some form or fashion as well.
I know we've talked a lot about how students are going to benefit from the Citadel, but how will the faculty and these teachers also benefit from having the Citadel?
What we're looking at is a series of faculty or teaching workshops to start in the short term. The other thing then we're looking at is to consider the possibility of a mentoring program that we might roll out next semester if there's enough faculty interest in it. Longer term goals would probably involve some areas involving research, maybe some areas involving some service as well, or service learning as well. Right now, what we've looked at, based on a survey we conducted of the faculty, that the number one answer they said they were interested in are various workshops that increase what we call pedagogy or teaching, that make them, for lack of a better phrase, an even better teacher than they are right now. So those are the things we're going to focus on in the spring semester, including what we're going to start hopefully in October, what we're calling a brown bag lunch series, in which a faculty member will gather with other faculty or graduate students and discuss a research project they're working on or something like that. And then again, hopefully next semester, maybe roll out something on a mentoring side where senior faculty and newer faculty can be paired in some sort of relationship that will help that junior faculty member professionally, but certainly I think also benefit the senior faculty member as well.
Okay. Well, thank you, Anthony, for joining me. That's all the time we have for Campus Stories today. Thank you for joining us, and please tune in next week.